Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. And today, we're being joined by Aaron Zapata, who is currently writing his first book about helping people with building long-term real estate solutions. Aaron, welcome to the show, and did I butcher anything about your book?
No, it's right on. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to be here and talking with you about it.
Excellent. Well, we are thrilled to have you. Are you ready to begin?
I am absolutely ready.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
I would say the first-time author, and that's myself, it's being willing to put the book out there. Because writing it is one thing, putting it out there for criticism is the other thing, and every first-time writer just has to get it out there and be willing to be criticized for the words you've written. I think that's the advice I would give. That's the advice I'm taking myself, and just being open to that criticism that's going to come after we've put the spoken word into written word.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
You know, for me, it is getting over the finish line. I have the book written, I have it semi-edited, and I got to get it to the shelves. And that last bit has been a struggle for me, and that's where I'm at right now, and that's what we're going to get over this year.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you are planning to use with your book launch that you feel is going to work well.
Well, because my book launch is geared specifically to my industry where I work at, which is in the real estate industry, I have a huge database of realtors that I know of both locally and nationwide to promote the book. And I have a podcast, and so the book promotion is going to be launched in tandem with the podcast episodes. And I've got quite a few listeners, hundreds of listeners to the show. And so that's going to be able to help me launch the book.
So essentially you're data mining, is that right?
That's right.
So how were you able to acquire these lists?
Well, I belong to a number of associations. I have a number of networks that I belong to. And so that gives me access to people that are like-minded. And so in the 20 years I've been in real estate, I've just developed a huge network of people that I would consider my acquaintances, I don't know if I'd call them fans, but they are people that I could ask to buy the book or to read the book and to pass it on, and they would be open to that. So they're very warm contacts within my network over the last 20 years.
So in regards to your network, you mentioned about the strategy with utilizing those connections, but what about some of those people that you're data mining that you may not necessarily know too well? What is going to be your outreach strategy to get those engaged? Because obviously there's not a ton of real estate books out there. So due to the fact that this is in that niche, I'm assuming you're probably going to get a pretty good response rate with this because it's very unique what you're touching upon.
Yeah, I think I have put out, breadcrumbs along the way, just saying, hey, I've got this book coming, I've got a draft format, and even the cold drip data mines, the emails from the databases of people that maybe I don't know, but we're in the same circle. I have got a huge response of people asking me for a pre-release copy of the draft. And so just putting it out there, I think you're right, because it's such a niche product, has been very good. And so just a repetitive kind of drip campaign, as well as I'm going to put on my website, which I've just added it as of today, and it's going to be on my podcast and my intro, my outro, and it's just kind of like you don't know which is going to work, so you got to market it and advertise it everywhere. And so that's my approach. But direct email campaign is primarily where I've had the best success, believe it or not.
Well, another thing with this too is the fact of the subject of your book, because one of the things that you're touching on is to be able to make this working in real estate sustainable. Because you mentioned to me that roughly 5% is a 5% success rate. So essentially 1 out of 20 people that go into real estate are successful over a long-term period, which I had no idea about prior to our conversation, Aaron.
Yeah, and one of the things we hit on in this book is, I'm not creating a problem to solve. I'm actually trying to solve a problem that already exists,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the 95% failure rate. And so a key portion, and you had mentioned this before that we started recording, but my title's not yet been set in stone because I'm trying to figure out what's going to gauge the heart and the mind to address the problem just by the title of the book, because everybody wants to be in business for a long term. Everybody wants to be in real estate for the long term. They don't have hopes and dreams of failing in 5 years. So I got to address that in the title. That will be a key part of my marketing, and then just going with it and being a resource to anybody and everybody in real estate who wants to succeed.
Well, speaking of books, I'd like to know what is your favorite book and what was the number one thing that you learned from it.
As I'm not a huge avid reader, so I grew up with dyslexia, still have it, makes reading difficult. So for me to be an author is kind of funny, but the book that I found most recently very helpful was The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. And one of the reasons it is helpful for me is, as I struggle with dyslexia, it wasn't all data, it wasn't all numbers, it wasn't all very detailed. It was a very simple, easy read that told a story that painted a picture that I was able to understand. So that's why I like it. In fact, I've implemented many of the ideals from that book as I have had to change over staff at my office. And it's been very helpful as I look for better team members and things that can help me grow my company. And so that's very, very exciting for me to actually have read a book that's simple, short, and yet very powerful.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote is a quote by Abraham Lincoln, and he says, "Whatever you are, be the best at it." It doesn't matter what we do in life. It doesn't matter, if you're a garbage truck driver or a farmer or a CEO executive. It doesn't matter what you do, but you got to be the best at it, and you got to strive for the best, because there's room for the best in every single category of life. And I love that quote.
Well, Aaron, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
The best way is to go to my website, and they can go to www.aaronzapata.com, ZAPATA.com, and that's the best way to get a hold of me. Just go to my website.
Aaron, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
You too. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.